Dubai's golden towers pierce the sky like monuments to human ambition, each gleaming surface reflecting dreams of endless wealth and power. But what happens when those dreams become nightmares? What happens when the people you trust most become the architects of your destruction? Have you ever placed complete faith in someone, believing they had your best interests at heart, only to discover they were plotting your downfall? Have you ever wondered how the ultra-wealthy protect their secrets, and what lengths people will go to steal them? On August 6, 2019, in one of Dubai's most exclusive neighborhoods, 2 lives were brutally cut short in what appeared to be a simple burglary. Sheikh Nadir al-Rashawn, a business mogul worth hundreds of millions, and his mysterious mistress Serena were found dead in their luxury villa. The initial story seemed straightforward: wrong place, wrong time, tragic circumstances. But here's the problem with first impressions. They're designed to deceive you. What police discovered hidden within the walls of that mansion would expose a web of betrayal so calculated, so ruthless, that it would shake Dubai's elite to their core. We're talking about secret rooms filled with millions in cash, forged identities, possible international espionage, and a murder plot orchestrated by the one person who had unlimited access to everything. Before we expose the shocking truth that changed everything, I need to ask you something. If you're someone who values loyalty, who believes trust is sacred, then you need to hear this story. But if you're not subscribed to this channel, you're missing cases that could literally teach you how to spot the warning signs before it's too late. The subscribe button is right there, and honestly, if you don't hit it, you're choosing to remain blind to the dark realities that surround us every day. Now, what I'm about to reveal will challenge everything you think you know about trust, wealth, and human nature. Because when investigators finally cracked this case wide open, they didn't just solve a double murder. They exposed a hidden world where nothing is as it seems, where the people closest to you might be your greatest threat. The question isn't whether you can handle the truth. The question is, are you ready to learn how a trusted advisor turned a luxury villa into a crime scene, and how a secret room changed everything we thought we knew about this case? Stay with me, because what happened next will leave you questioning everyone in your own life. Emirates Hills stands as Dubai's crown jewel of luxury living, a gated community where billionaires call home and privacy costs more than most people earn in a lifetime. Manicured lawns stretch between palatial villas, each one a fortress of marble and glass worth tens of millions of dollars. Villa 44 belonged to Sheikh Nadir al-Rashawn, and on the morning of August 6, 2019, it looked exactly like what it was supposed to be, a symbol of success, power, and untouchable wealth. The sun rose over perfectly trimmed hedges, expensive cars glided silently through the streets, and everything appeared normal in this bubble of extreme privilege. But at 10:47 a.m., that illusion shattered forever. Amira Hassan, the housekeeper who had worked for Sheikh Nadir for over 3 years, used her key to enter through the service entrance. She expected to find her employer preparing for his usual morning routine: coffee in the garden, business calls from his study, maybe a round of golf later. Instead, she walked into a scene that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Sheikh Nadir sat slumped beside his mahogany desk, his expensive suit wrinkled, his face pale as marble. His eyes stared at nothing. On the velvet sofa across the room lay Serena, her auburn hair spread across the cushions like spilled wine, her body motionless. Amira's scream echoed through the villa's marble halls, a sound so raw and terrified that it brought security guards running from 3 houses away. Within minutes, Emirates Hills, a place where silence was golden and privacy was everything, became the center of Dubai's most shocking crime scene. The first responders saw what appeared obvious: a burglary gone wrong. 2 victims, no signs of struggle, valuable items still in place. It looked like they had simply been in the wrong place when thieves broke in. But here's what I want you to think about. Drop in the comments where you're watching from, and tell me, are you in a place where the people around you really know each other? Because what happened in Villa 44 proves that even in the most secure, most exclusive communities on Earth, the greatest danger often comes from within. The real story was just beginning. Sheikh Nadir al-Rashawn wasn't just wealthy, he was Dubai royalty without the crown. At 49 years old, He commanded a business empire that stretched from shipping ports to luxury resorts across 3 continents. His handshake could seal million-dollar deals, his phone calls could move markets, and his influence reached into boardrooms from London to Singapore. But power like that comes with a price. Nadir lived behind bulletproof glass, traveled with security details, and trusted very few people with access to his private world. He was methodical, careful, and paranoid about his safety, which made his death even more shocking. Then there was Serena Vokavar, the woman who had turned Dubai's social circles upside down. Originally from Eastern Europe, she arrived in the city claiming to be an art dealer, but nobody could quite figure out where her money came from. She spoke 4 languages fluently, wore designer clothes that cost more than luxury cars, and had a mysterious elegance that opened doors everywhere she went. When Serena started appearing at Nadir's side at exclusive events, the whispers began immediately. She was half his age, stunningly beautiful, and completely unknown to Dubai's established elite. Some called her a gold digger. Others suspected she was much more dangerous than she appeared. What made their relationship even more intriguing was how secretive they kept it. No social media posts, no public declarations, no interviews. They moved through Dubai's high society like ghosts, present but untouchable, visible but unknowable. When Dubai police arrived at Villa 44, they initially treated this as a straightforward case. 2 victims, no forced entry, valuable artwork and jewelry left untouched. Detective Captain Rashid Al-Mansouri, who had seen dozens of similar cases, immediately suspected a burglary interrupted. The theory seemed logical. Thieves broke in expecting an empty house, encountered the couple unexpectedly, panicked, and fled after a confrontation turned deadly. It happened more often than people realized in Dubai's wealthy neighborhoods. But if you think you can predict where this story is heading, you need to hit that subscribe button right now because you have absolutely no idea what's coming next. The truth behind these deaths is so twisted, so calculated, that it will change how you view everyone in your own life. Here's what I want you to do. Tell me in the comments, do you really think this was a random burglary? Look at the facts we have so far. A security-obsessed billionaire and his mysterious mistress, found dead in a locked villa with no signs of forced entry. Does that sound like bad luck to you? Because what investigators discovered next would prove that luck had nothing to do with it. This was something far more calculated, far more personal, and far more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Major Halim Kadir had investigated over 200 homicides in his 15-year career with Dubai police. He had seen everything from crimes of passion to professional hits, and he knew how to read a crime scene like others read newspapers. When he stepped into Villa 44, his experienced eyes immediately caught details that others missed. The front door showed no damage. The windows were intact. The sophisticated alarm system had been disabled at exactly 9:41 p.m. using the correct access code. Not bypassed, not destroyed, but properly deactivated by someone who knew the 6-digit sequence. This wasn't a break-in. This was an invitation. In Sheikh Nadir's private study, Halim noticed the deliberate staging immediately. Crystal wine glasses lay shattered on the Persian rug, their contents staining the expensive fabric dark red. A half-burned candle flickered on the side table, wax pooling onto the marble surface. Everything looked chaotic, but it was chaos with purpose. The positioning of the bodies told a different story than the scattered glass suggested. Sheikh Nadir sat in his leather chair as if he had simply fallen asleep during a late-night meeting. No defensive wounds on his hands, no signs he had fought for his life. Serena lay on the sofa in an almost peaceful pose, her expensive dress unwrinkled, her jewelry still perfectly in place. But here's what bothered Halim most. The back of Sheikh Nadir's head showed a shallow wound, barely deep enough to draw blood. For a man who supposedly died from blunt force trauma, the injury was surprisingly minor. Too minor to be fatal. The wine bottles on the desk told another story entirely. 2 expensive bottles of Chateau Margaux, each worth over $5,000, sat opened but barely touched. The wine in the glasses had an unusual bitter smell that made Halim step back instinctively. Every detail screamed professional execution disguised as amateur violence. Someone had wanted this to look like a burglary gone wrong, but they had tried too hard to sell the story. Halim called for the forensics team immediately. He knew that whoever did this had made one critical mistake. They assumed the police would see what they wanted them to see, not what was actually there. Every week, I investigate cases where the obvious answer is completely wrong, where the evidence tells a story that nobody wants to believe. But only my subscribers get the complete truth about how these investigations really work. If you're not subscribed, you're missing the most important details that solve these cases. Because what the forensics team discovered about those wine glasses would change everything. The real cause of death wasn't what anyone expected, and it would lead investigators to a suspect so close to the victims that nobody saw it coming. Dr. Fatima Al-Zahra had performed over 1,000 autopsies in Dubai's state-of-the-art forensic laboratory, but the results from Sheikh Nadir and Serena's bodies left her staring at her computer screen in disbelief. Both victims had lethal concentrations of hydrogen cyanide in their bloodstreams, enough to kill them within minutes of ingestion. The poison had been mixed into the expensive wine they had consumed that evening, turning their final toast into their last breath. But here's where the case took a shocking turn. The head wound on Sheikh Nadir had been inflicted after he was already dead. The forensic evidence was undeniable. No blood flow patterns, no swelling, no vital response. Someone had struck his lifeless body to create the illusion of blunt force trauma. This wasn't a burglary interrupted by unexpected victims. This was cold-blooded murder disguised as something else entirely. The toxicology reports revealed even more disturbing details. The cyanide used was pharmaceutical grade, not something you could buy at a hardware store or mix in your kitchen. This required access to specialized chemicals, knowledge of lethal dosages, and careful planning. Dr. Al-Zahra's timeline reconstruction showed that both victims had died between 10:15 and 10:30 p.m. on August 5th. They had consumed the poisoned wine within minutes of each other, suggesting they had been sharing a drink together when the killer struck. The crime scene suddenly made perfect sense. The shattered glasses, the spilled wine, the staged chaos. All of it was theater performed after the real show had ended. Someone had spent considerable time arranging the scene to tell a false story. Major Halim knew he was dealing with a calculated killer who understood police procedures well enough to create convincing misdirection. But every criminal makes mistakes, and this one had left a digital trail that would lead straight to their door. The investigation now shifted from solving a burglary to hunting a murderer who had intimate knowledge of the victim's routines, access to their home, and the cold calculation to poison two people while looking them in the eyes. If you're still watching this, comment betrayed so I know you're following this shocking revelation. Because what investigators discovered next would prove that the most dangerous enemies are often the ones we trust most. The digital evidence was about to expose a killer hiding in plain sight. In Dubai, privacy is a luxury, but digital footprints are forever. Every gate entry, every phone call, every credit card transaction leaves an electronic trail that investigators can follow like breadcrumbs through a forest of lies. The gatehouse security logs at Emirates Hills became the first crack in the killer's carefully constructed alibi. At 9:51 p.m. on August 5th, just 10 minutes after the alarm system was disabled, a midnight black Maserati Quattroporte entered through the main gates. The license plate belonged to Darian Koval, Sheikh Nadir's chief financial officer and most trusted business partner. Darian had worked alongside Sheikh Nadir for over 8 years, managing hundreds of millions in investments, real estate deals, and offshore accounts. He was one of only 5 people who knew the villa's alarm code. He had dinner at the house regularly. He was family. But the digital evidence painted a very different picture of that night. Cell phone tower triangulation showed Darian's phone pinging towers around Emirates Hills from 9:50 p.m. until 11:47 p.m., nearly 2 hours in the area where the murders took place. His official alibi claimed he was having dinner with clients at the Burj Al Arab, 40 minutes away. Restaurant security cameras and credit card records destroyed that lie completely. Darian had never shown up for his dinner reservation. The clients he claimed to be meeting had waited for over an hour before leaving. The next morning, traffic cameras captured Darian's Maserati at a car wash in Al Quoz industrial area. Workers later told police that he had insisted on a complete interior steam cleaning, paying triple the normal rate for immediate service. He specifically requested that they clean everything: the seats, carpets, dashboard, even the air vents. When investigators examined the car wash's security footage, they watched Darian personally supervising the cleaning process, pointing out spots the workers had missed, making sure every surface was scrubbed multiple times. Bank records revealed another damning detail. 3 days before the murders, Darian had withdrawn 50,000 dirhams in cash from 5 different ATMs across the city. For a man who normally used credit cards for everything, this sudden need for untraceable money raised immediate red flags. Cases like this demonstrate why staying informed about criminal investigation techniques is crucial. Subscribe if you want to learn how digital evidence solves the cases that seem impossible to crack. But here's what made investigators certain they had their killer. Darian's phone had made a very specific search at 2:17 a.m. on August 6th, just hours after the murders. He had Googled, "How long does cyanide stay in bloodstream?" and "Dubai forensic autopsy timeline." If this evidence is shocking you, smash that like button, because what investigators discovered about Darian's financial activities would expose a motive so powerful that it explained everything. While investigators built their case against Darian Koval, a parallel investigation into Serena Vokavar's background revealed secrets that would complicate everything they thought they knew about this case. Serena's downtown penthouse apartment became a treasure trove of deception. Hidden behind false panels in her walk-in closet, investigators discovered multiple passports, each bearing her photograph but different names, birth dates, and nationalities. Serena Vokavar from Ukraine, Elena Petrov from Moldova, Maria Kozlov from Belarus. Her laptop contained encrypted files that took Dubai's cybercrime unit 3 weeks to crack. When they finally accessed the data, they found correspondence with contacts across Eastern Europe, coded messages about asset transfers, and financial records showing payments from shell companies registered in Cyprus and the Cayman Islands. But the most shocking discovery came from a hidden safe behind her bathroom mirror, a diplomatic passport issued by a country that officially denied any knowledge of her existence. Detective Captain Al-Mansouri realized they weren't just dealing with a mistress who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Serena appeared to be a professional operative, possibly intelligence, possibly organized crime, definitely someone with connections that reached far beyond Dubai's social scene. Her bank statements revealed a pattern of large cash deposits every 3 months, always exactly $47,000, always from different international wire transfers. The money came from accounts in Switzerland, Singapore, and Luxembourg, classic money laundering routes used by intelligence agencies and criminal organizations. Phone records showed that Serena had been in contact with someone using encrypted messaging apps right up until the day she died. Her last message, sent at 6:23 p.m. on August 5th, contained only coordinates and the word, "confirmed." The investigation team now faced a terrifying possibility. Had Serena discovered something about Sheikh Nadir's business that made her a target? Was she gathering intelligence on his financial empire? Or had she stumbled onto Darian's embezzlement scheme and threatened to expose him? Security footage from the villa's exterior cameras showed Serena arriving at 8:15 p.m. on the night of the murders, carrying a small briefcase that was never found at the crime scene. Whatever was in that briefcase had disappeared along with her life. Comment below. Do you think Serena was a spy gathering intelligence on Sheikh Nadir's empire? What's your theory about her real identity and mission? Because what investigators were about to discover in Sheikh Nadir's villa would prove that Serena had indeed found something explosive, something worth killing for, something that would expose corruption on a scale that shocked even experienced detectives. On August 12th, 6 days after the murders, detective specialist Amara Khalil was conducting a final sweep of Sheikh Nadir's study when she noticed something that had escaped everyone's attention. The mirrored wall behind his desk reflected light at a slightly different angle than the others. When she pressed against the mirror's edge, it clicked softly and swung inward on hidden hinges, revealing a steel door with an electronic lock. The panic room that Sheikh Nadir had installed 3 years earlier was so well concealed that even his household staff didn't know it existed. Using Sheikh Nadir's fingerprint from the morgue, investigators accessed the chamber and discovered a site that left seasoned officers speechless. Stacks of cash lined 3 walls: US dollars, euros, British pounds, and Swiss francs bundled in bank-grade currency straps. The preliminary count reached $30 million in physical cash. Gold bars, each stamped with Swiss refinery marks, were arranged like building blocks on reinforced shelves. But the real treasure wasn't the money, it was the information. For encrypted laptops contained detailed records of offshore accounts, shell companies, and business deals that painted a picture of financial operations spanning decades. Sheikh Nadir hadn't just been wealthy. He had been the center of a massive money laundering network that moved billions through Dubai's banking system. The files revealed partnerships with oligarchs, arms dealers, and politicians from 12 different countries. Construction contracts inflated by hundreds of millions. Real estate purchases used to clean dirty money. Resort developments that existed only on paper but generated enormous tax write-offs. Most damaging of all were the detailed records of bribes paid to government officials, judges, and law enforcement across the Middle East and Europe. Sheikh Nadir had kept meticulous documentation of every illegal transaction, insurance against his partners, but ultimately evidence of his own crimes. Detective Khalil found handwritten notes in Sheikh Nadir's personal code, documenting his growing suspicion that someone was stealing from his accounts. The final entry, dated just 2 days before his death, read, "DK accessing Singapore accounts without authorization. Serena asking too many questions about Cyprus transfers. Need to secure evidence." The picture became crystal clear. Darian Koval had been systematically embezzling millions from Sheikh Nadir's empire, using his position as CFO to redirect funds into personal accounts. Serena, with her intelligence background, had discovered the theft and was gathering evidence. Both had become threats to Darian's freedom and his stolen fortune. If you're not subscribed to this channel, you're missing the most shocking true crime discoveries that reveal how the ultra-wealthy really operate. These are the stories that expose corruption at the highest levels, stories that could teach you how power and money actually work in our world. Share this video with someone who needs to understand these truths, because what happened next proves that when billions of dollars are at stake, some people will kill anyone who stands in their way. The evidence was overwhelming, but Darian Koval was about to make one final, desperate move that would seal his fate forever. On August 15, 2019, Darian Koval thought he had covered his tracks perfectly. The murders were 9 days old. The investigation seemed focused on international espionage angles, and he had maintained his role as the grieving business partner helping police understand Sheikh Nadir's complex financial empire. What Darian didn't know was that Dubai police had been watching his every move for 3 days, waiting for him to make the mistake that would end his freedom forever. At 11:30 p.m., airport security cameras captured Darian arriving at Dubai International's private aviation terminal, pulling 2 large suitcases behind him. He had booked a private jet to Baku, Azerbaijan, a country with no extradition treaty with the UAE. Inside those suitcases, $4 million in cash, stolen directly from Sheikh Nadir's hidden chamber. Major Halim Kadir and his team intercepted Darian just 50 meters from the aircraft stairs. When they opened his luggage, bundles of currency spilled across the tarmac, money that forensic analysis would later match to the bills found in Sheikh Nadir's panic room. Under interrogation, the evidence against Darian became overwhelming. Chemical analysis of his car revealed traces of hydrogen cyanide despite the professional cleaning. His laptop search history showed research into untraceable poisons, Dubai's forensic procedures, and flight schedules to non-extradition countries. Bank records exposed the full scope of his embezzlement. Over 18 months, Darian had redirected $47 million from Sheikh Nadir's accounts into offshore companies he controlled. He had used his access to create fake invoices, phantom consulting fees, and fraudulent investment losses. The timeline of the murders became clear through digital evidence. Darian had arrived at the villa at 9:51 p.m., disabled the alarm using his authorized code, and joined Sheikh Nadir and Serena for what appeared to be a business discussion over expensive wine. He had poisoned both bottles before arriving, knowing that Sheikh Nadir always offered guests his finest vintages. While his victims died, Darian had staged the crime scene, struck Sheikh Nadir's lifeless head to create false evidence, and stolen cash from the hidden chamber before fleeing. Phone records showed that Serena had been blackmailing Darian for weeks, threatening to expose his theft to Sheikh Nadir unless he paid her $5 million. Her intelligence background had made her particularly dangerous. She knew how to gather evidence and had connections that could destroy him internationally. Stories like this demonstrate why I spend weeks researching every case. If you value this level of investigation and want to understand how real criminal minds operate, subscribe now because you won't find this depth of analysis anywhere else. The trial would reveal even more shocking details about the calculated nature of these murders and the staggering amount of money that drove a trusted friend to become a cold-blooded killer. The trial of Darian Koval began in February 2020 and lasted 4 months. Dubai's criminal court heard testimony that revealed the calculated brutality of a man who had spent 8 years earning Sheikh Nadir's complete trust, only to repay that faith with poison and betrayal. Prosecutors presented evidence showing that Darian had been planning the murders for over 6 months. He had researched cyanide suppliers, studied the villa's security systems, and even practiced disabling similar alarm models. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a business decision executed with corporate efficiency. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning a guilty verdict on 2 counts of premeditated murder and multiple counts of embezzlement. Darian Koval was sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 35 years. Villa 44 was sold quietly to a private buyer who demolished most of the interior, removing every trace of the hidden chamber and the mirrored walls that had concealed so many secrets. The Al Rashoun family retreated from public life, their name forever linked to one of Dubai's most shocking betrayals. Serena Volkovar's body was returned to Ukraine, though her real identity remained classified by multiple intelligence agencies. The briefcase she carried on her final night was never recovered, and the coordinates in her last message led to an empty warehouse in Sharjah. But here's what this case teaches us about human nature and the people we choose to trust. Sheikh Nadir Al Rashoun had everything money could buy: security systems, bodyguards, bulletproof cars, and a fortress-like home. Yet he was killed by the one person who had unlimited access to his life, his most trusted advisor. The warning signs were there. Darian's lifestyle had become increasingly expensive despite his salary. He had been asking detailed questions about offshore accounts and legal procedures. He had shown unusual interest in Sheikh Nadir's security arrangements and daily routines. Are you still here watching this? Comment your biggest takeaway from this case because the lessons are crucial for everyone. This story proves that the greatest threats often come from within our inner circles. The people who know our routines, our weaknesses, our secrets, they're the ones who can destroy us most completely. If this investigation opened your eyes to how betrayal really works, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss these life-saving stories. Share this with someone who needs to understand these truths. Thank you for watching, and remember, in a world where trust can be deadly, knowledge is your best protection.